I can still hear the forest. Even now, back in my village, far from those cursed trees, it whispers to me. My brother's voice calls out, and sometimes, I think of going back, of answering him. But I know what that would mean. Let me tell you how it all happened, from the very beginning, before the forest claimed me too. My name is Amora, and this is the story of how I lost my brother. Chinedu was my only family, my best friend. We grew up in a small village where everyone knew each other, where stories of the forest were whispered in fear. No one dared go near it. They said the forest was cursed, and the spirits of the lost wandered there forever. But Chinedu wasn't like everyone else. Chinedu was always curious. He loved adventure and often said the forest couldn't be as dangerous as the elders claimed. It's just a story to keep us from exploring, he would say. I told him the stories were true, but he didn't listen. He always believed there was something beyond the trees, something magical. He wanted to see it for himself. One morning, Chinedu left early. He didn't say where he was going, but I knew. When the sun set and he hadn't returned, I felt a cold fear wrap around my heart. I waited, hoping he would walk back into the village with that smile on his face. But he didn't. Days passed. The village whispered that he had entered the forest of lost souls. I went to the elders, hoping they would tell me what to do. He is lost, they said. You cannot follow him. The forest has taken him. They spoke of the curse, of how the forest played tricks on the mind. But I couldn't let him go. I had to find him. So I decided, against all warnings, to go into the forest myself. The moment I stepped into the forest, the air changed. The sun disappeared behind the thick trees, and a strange silence filled the space. The wind was still, and the birds had stopped singing. I could feel the weight of the stories pressing down on me. But I kept going. I called out for Chinedu, hoping to hear his voice, but there was no answer. After hours of walking, I saw something. It was a piece of Chinedu's shirt, caught on a branch. My heart leapt. He had been here. I knew he was still alive. I picked up the cloth and kept walking, feeling more hopeful, but also afraid. What if I couldn't find him? What if the forest swallowed me too? As I walked deeper into the forest, strange things began to happen. The trees around me seemed to shift and move, though there was no wind. I heard whispers in the air, faint voices calling my name.
Amora, come closer.
Amora, they sounded like Chinedu, but something was wrong. The voices were too soft, too strange. I remembered the elders' warnings, never follow the voices. The deeper I went, the more disoriented I became. The path I was following seemed to twist and turn, and before I knew it, I was lost. No matter which way I turned, I ended up in the same place. The trees were playing tricks on me, keeping me trapped. I started to panic, but I couldn't give up. I had to find Chinedu. It wasn't long before I saw them, the lost souls. They appeared as shadows at first, moving between the trees. Their eyes were empty, their faces pale and thin. I could hear their voices, faint and pleading.
Help us, help us.
But I knew better than to trust them. These were the people who had entered the forest and never came back. Their souls were trapped here, forever wandering. I kept walking, pushing away the fear. I had to stay focused. Soon, I found something else, Chinedu's knife. It was lying on the ground next to a tree. I picked it up, holding it tightly. He was close, I could feel it. But the forest was making it harder to find him. I could feel its presence, watching me, testing me. One of the lost souls came closer, a woman with long, tangled hair and hollow eyes. She whispered to me, her voice like the wind.
Turn back, the forest will take you too. You cannot save him.
But I refused to listen. I had come too far to turn back now. I pushed past her, my heart pounding in my chest. After what felt like hours of walking, I stumbled upon a small hut in a clearing. It was old and crooked, covered in vines and moss. Something about it felt wrong, but I knew I had to go inside. Chinedu could be in there. I stepped forward, my hands trembling as I reached for the door. Inside the hut, it was dark and cold. At first, I didn't see anyone, but then, from the shadows, a figure emerged. He was tall, with glowing red eyes and a voice like thunder.
You should not have come here, he said. Your brother belongs to the forest now, and so will you.
I looked around, desperate to find Chinedu, but the man in the shadows, the guardian of the forest, only laughed.
He is no longer the brother you remember, he said. The forest has him now.
My heart sank as I realized the truth. Chinedu wasn't alive anymore. He was one of the lost souls, just like the others. Suddenly, Chinedu stepped out from the shadows. But he wasn't the brother I knew. His eyes were empty, his face pale. He looked at me, but he didn't see me. He was no longer alive. The forest had taken him. The guardian smiled, a cold, cruel smile.
You have a choice, he said. You can leave now, but your brother will stay here forever. Or you can stay with him, and the forest will take you both.
My heart broke at his words. How could I leave Chinedu behind? But how could I stay? I had no choice. If I stayed, I would become like Chinedu, lost and empty. I wanted to save him, but I couldn't. The forest was too powerful. With tears in my eyes, I turned and ran, leaving my brother behind. I ran as fast as I could, the trees closing in around me. The lost souls followed, their whispers filling my ears.
Stay with us.
But I kept running, desperate to escape the forest grip. The air grew colder, the light dimmer, but I didn't stop. After what felt like hours of running, I saw the edge of the forest. The sunlight broke through the trees, and I pushed myself forward, running toward the light. Finally, I stepped out of the forest and back into the open air. When I returned to the village, everyone looked at me with pity. They knew I had failed to bring Chinedu back. The elders nodded sadly, knowing the forest had claimed another soul. But I was alive. I had escaped, though I knew I would never be the same. Even though I left the forest, it never left me. Every night, I dreamed of Chinedu. I could hear his voice calling to me, begging me to come back. The forest whispered to me, pulling at the edges of my mind. The forest was still inside me. I could feel its presence, even in the daylight. Sometimes, I would hear the whispers again, faint and distant, but always there. The forest didn't let go of its victims so easily. I couldn't shake the guilt of leaving Chinedu behind. I should have been able to save him. I should have stayed with him. But deep down, I knew there was nothing I could do. The forest was too powerful, too ancient. Even now, I feel the pull of the forest. It calls to me, whispers my name on the wind. Sometimes, I think of going back, of trying one more time to save Chinedu. But I know what that would mean. I would never come out again. The forest pull is strong, and sometimes I wonder if it's only a matter of time before I return. But I can't go back, not after everything I've seen. I remember the lost souls, their hollow eyes, and the way Chinedu looked at me, no longer the brother I once knew. The whispers continue, but I try to ignore them, though every day it becomes harder. The elders say that the forest of lost souls never truly lets go of those who enter. It's true. Though I escaped, a part of me is still trapped there, along with Chinedu and the others. I feel it in the silence of the night, in the shadows that stretch too far, and in the cold breeze that brushes past me. I have not returned to the forest, but I know it's only a matter of time. One day, the forest will come for me again, and this time, I won't be able to resist. The forest never forgets, and it never truly lets you go.